Hey everybody. I don't think I'm muted. No, I'm not. That's fantastic. Hopefully. Yes, that works. I'm Dave, and Meki can't be with us today. He isn't feeling very well, so thoughts and prayers out to Meki. See if he can recover for Tuesday morning. It's flu season here, so I'm sure it's not terrible, but still wish him well. And look, this is Shiny Side Out. Shiny Side Out, which is the correct way to fold your tinfoil hat. Broadcasting from Australia for Revolution Radio on revolution.radio. That is the home of fresh ideas. It's also a place you can donate if you like anything we say. Do that, donate to the station. You can buy merch. Buy all of the merch. No, just buy the merch you require. If you like anything we say, it's really important to donate to the station. That's how it doesn't get advertising revenue. It was chosen that way, decided, organised, designed by Nighthawk. May he forever rest in peace. Sad that I never got to meet him in person. I had planned on over there, and then my daughter got sick, then we couldn't go, then it was COVID, and poor fellow. So look, there isn't a day or a week that goes by where we don't think of you, Nighthawk. Love your work, pal, and thanks for setting up the station. It's in good hands. It's been looked after. I'm now on the management team, which is great, although it's 2 o'clock in the morning when our management meeting is on, and it's very difficult for me to get up at 5 in the morning after being on a call for an hour at 2 a.m. Anyway, putting that aside, join us in the chat room. That's correct. And that's where I'm just about to be. You can join me when I get there. I'll join you, whoever's in there. And let me do a little shout out when I get into the chat room. Takes a moment. Hey, Shermanator, Unforsaken, Lavender Streams, Amiga Legos, Batman. Flippy killed Flippy killed Rev Radio. Thank you, Flippy. Harmony 369. There's a whole bunch. Fleddy, I can see on there. So, a big shout out to everyone in the chat room. Don't forget you can message me while I'm on air, and that's the beauty of having. I nearly did the wrong thing. That's the beauty of having a chat room on a radio station. It's great. Think about the possibilities. Now, this is show number 696. If Meki were here, he would say 690 and 600. Why? I still have to ask. It could be Latin. It could be there's an origin, ancient origin there about how to describe the number 696. Tune in to us online on your smart device directly via an app, or, I like this bit, listen at home on a Grace tabletop digital radio. Get yourself a DAB and buy a Grace version, the product company name, the manufacturer, Grace. They make a really nice one. It looks like an old-fashioned wooden radio. It's really nice, or Bakelite. Very nice. It'll do the job, and you can listen to Revolution Radio. That's a Freudian slip. If you missed Solaris' show like I did, well, I'm just a silly person. I really could have, but I was kind of working with the show notes since I'd been advised that Meki wasn't going to be with me. I decided to make it some content that I can do on my own. So I did. I'm going to catch her show, though, later, after my show, because it's in the archives. The station has free archives. All you need to do is click on the archives link. There's a password and username there, provided on screen. You use that, and you can enter the archives. And then you can download any host's shows. Get them, download a whole bunch. You discover new shows. You don't simply need to listen to them online. You can get them. You can get them in arrears and binge them. It's really cool if you're doing a long flight or something. You can download a whole bunch of them, just listen back to back is good. And I shall be listening to Solaris' show. Always has great guests and always has a great show. Thanks, Solaris. Loves and hugs and kisses to you wherever you happen to be on the globe. And yeah, let's encourage more people to listen to your show because it really is awesome. Now, what was next? Yes, I'm broadcasting out of Darkinjung country. I'll say it correctly for the first time today. Actually, I don't think I've spoken in 2 hours. Not even in company. I'm sitting by myself doing some research. So that's okay. You know, you can catch this show live, either through the station or through Rumble. After the show is concluded, I upload Shiny Side Out to Spotify and also to YouTube, and then I put links into X and, well, where else? We put clips into Insta and to TikTok, also YouTube and Rumble. No, not Rumble. X. So we put clips out, I think, to 5 different places. If you like anything in our content, don't just watch it. Don't just swipe away. Like, share, subscribe, and comment. Each one of those things, whatever you do to it, rather than just moving on to the next video, do us a favor if you can and do one of those things. Interact with the video in some way. If you comment, we'll reply. If you share it, it turns up in the algorithm. Same as liking it and subscribing. It increases the perimeter. The perimeter 2πr. So you can do that and make that a better experience for more new people to listen. You don't necessarily have to share it. I'd like it if you did. But the more you interact with it, the more people get presented with an option to watch it. So if you can help us out, it'd be fantastic. We also have all the links are in the bottom of every video we do. That is, we have our own website, the station's website. We have our Zazzle page where you can buy our co-branded merch with Revolution Radio, which is really nice. I like the Hanes hoodie. That's quite good. It's well made. Material's super thick. It's nice and warm. You should like it. Probably not for the Northern Hemisphere at this point. I think we were 5 overnight and we're due for 5 degrees for the next few nights. And look, anyone in Northern America is going to go, oh, they're rookie numbers. You're right, they are. But because we get to 45 degrees in summer, the 40-degree temperature difference in Celsius between the hottest and the coldest days is a very wide band. It's kind of like desert when you think about how hot a desert could be in the middle of the day, but at nighttime it can be freezing cold. So just think about, well, this is Australia. There's a good song and there's a song in that one. Anyway, so having said all of that, that's the intro done. Let's consider that done and done. I've still been working with trying to place my video on screen and it's not even correct and the numbers are all terrible. The box isn't even centered. Even though I'm centered in the video, don't even worry about it. Now, what was the first thing I had? I pasted a news story and an article about Brigitte Macron. I won't say any more. I found possibly one of Candace's team's members had alerted her about it. She found someone else also and did a story on it the other day, which was interesting. And I led all of those I let those people, trace them back to Candace. It's pretty good. I don't mind. I like a show. I watch that. There's a whole bunch of shows I like. Whether or not I agree with the host and their opinions, I like the shows. I think Candice does a very good job and is very open and human on the show. And it's that the realism that she brings through all her emotion. I think she really does sell her point. I know why she's doing it. I watched Tucker a little bit more out of faith with Tucker. I don't mind a bit of Rogan. Rogan, sadly, put people on, and for better or for worse, they've either let themselves down. The question hasn't been responded to very well, possibly by the guest. Rogan gives them all the rope they want to be able to, and the time to be able to say anything they want. And yet the take home from some of the shows leaves a little to be desired. And I think Kash Patel thought he was doing well, kind of like Prince Andrew, and did a very, very bad job of selling the idea of the Epstein files. I believe that he went on air after he was told you can't talk about anything. And if you agree with me, comment below. That'd be fantastic. There was something I saw the other day, and it was an old clip, a pre this election second term for Trump, and he was being interviewed on television, and there was some nice tight shot of him and crossing back between the interviewer and Donald Trump. POTUS. And there was a question that was raised: are you going to release the UFO files? Yes. Are you going to release the RFK files? JFK files, sorry. Yes. And then the Epstein files. Well, who really needs to do that? I've thought about it, and maybe I will, but it's probably not what you expect. I'm paraphrasing because it just didn't seem as though he really wanted that information to come out. But because it was on air and it was going live, then was he going to say no? No, he wasn't. The only answer he could say was yes, but then he started to unravel the urgency around it and what might be there. And it seemed apparent to me that he'd already had the conversation with whomever about who and why and and we really shouldn't be doing this, or if you release those. So he was already on the flight list. Trump was on the flight list. And this is an anti-Trump thing. This is everybody who is on the flight list doesn't necessarily mean that they behaved and conducted themselves in ways that would incriminate themselves later. It doesn't mean that. Wealthy guys hang out with wealthy guys. Wealthy people hang out with wealthy people, and wealthy people do wealthy people things, and they all seem to hang out on a level way above me and what I have. And it's true. This is a Red Dwarf quote. It's true to see who the person who's better off is, and it would be them because they're rich. So, in our world supports people being exceedingly wealthy, and it does support them enjoying their wealth in whatever way they see fit. Unfortunately, that way isn't the way the rest of us behave. And it seems as though there are laws that and people in power who have the ability to make all of that nonsense go away. That's all I'm saying on the topic. Because it's upsetting that the more money you have, the less you're found guilty of anything. So the next story is a follow-on from this, and you can use all of those same words on this same story. And it is P. Diddy. So they couldn't get him on anything except for a spousal abuse. That's it. And I can imagine a time where there are people who are saying, "Oh, phew, I'm glad that none of that came to light. The things we used to get up to at the Diddy mansion, the freak-offs." If their freak-offs were entirely consensual between consenting adults doing things that weren't illegal, good for them. Enjoy every second. Enjoy what you do. If they had to partake in some, what's the best way of putting it? We know them as a certain class of drugs. If people were taking a certain class of drugs and then getting up to mischief isn't illegal, I suppose. Not even a misdemeanor as long as everyone's consensual. And let's pretend they had a safety word. That's a joke. It annoys me that if there was anything at all that was illegal, that it's just now brushed away, it's under the carpet. Maybe Diddy was just as clever as Epstein to invite all of the correct people who, if it ever got out, would bury the topic so that they could never be found guilty of it. If that makes any sense. We all know this to be, I'm not saying the story of people behaving or misbehaving illegally, right? I'm not talking about that. I mean, we all presume, and it makes a great story, great fiction for cover-ups, and put your conspiracy hat on, and yes, there's a fantastic and a great rabbit hole to go down. And for people who like to do research, wow, it's wonderful. It's like all of the missing information around the moon landing, JFK. You keep going, Building 7. As soon as you start to hide information, the people who are curious will start to make up a narrative. I'm not saying the narratives are untrue or true. I'm just saying this is where there's a vacuum, people will start talking to fill a vacuum. So if you can own the message, this goes out to anyone who needs to own the message. If you own the message, at least you can say your point of view openly and get that out there. Sadly, it's not always the case. And once the void starts to be filled, it's now its own creature. It is alive. It morphs and changes over time. And the next thing is the conspiracies are born. They're believed more than any true story. If there was a truth that the conspiracy world, because a lot of armchair conspiracy theorists or factists, however you'd like to talk about them, there's a lot of things that they've pursued in the past which have turned out to be correct. So that gives them fuel to be able to pursue anything they want. And successfully or unsuccessfully, as the case may be, that's good that they've done it. Because sometimes the only reason the story is still alive after such a long time is because it has a momentum, it has a life of its own. There is something to it, despite the amount of negative press or astroturfing, which is one of my favourites. astroturfing out there, which makes it exceedingly difficult to try and find information. Of course, our only place of finding information these days is the internet. And the internet, every single day, is being cleansed more and more. The use of websites is dropping. It's falling. We're using more social media now for everything than anything else. We're using AI. I typed some things into Claude before the show to see if I could find some detail. And the detail was terrible, even though I could just do a search outside of Claude and then presented Claude again with these websites. Oh, that's been debunked. Who said it's been debunked? Who are the people that are saying what the truth really is? And of course, that harks back to 1984. Who's controlling the truth? Why is there someone controlling the truth? Shouldn't the truth simply be the truth? And then you end up with two different versions of the truth. How can there be two different truths? I was telling a workmate the other day about the fish in the fish tank. So if you have an oblong tank with a very long fish in it, there'll be two people that see a different thing when they look in the fish tank. If from the side, on the long side, you'll see a long fish. From the front, you'll just see a small head. And two people can describe the fish the best they can, but both descriptions will be different. That's it. So, yes, there can be kind of, I'm not double thinking this, there can be kind of two ways of describing the same thing. And if I liken that to, say, a traffic accident, many people saw it, they all had different perspectives. Some will have less accuracy than others, and therefore anyone taking any notes at the scene, for instance, like a police officer who's been called because someone's collided with someone else, you might find one person is lying, but four of them are kind of collaborating the same story. Not intentionally collaborating, just providing the same story that shows that it's collaborated more heavily on one side than the other, and the person who's lying, fingers crossed, is they're all unknown to each other, is found out pretty quickly. So I wanted to say, I'm going to put this up. I don't think I'm even doing the right thing here. So if I do middle screen, yeah, see, it's still showing part of the station. So this story from Candace, I think I've already mentioned. You can have a look at, you can listen to this show on your own. Check it out. It's episode 214, something I found the other day. And that was one of the ones that kind of referenced what I was talking about. Now, there was a story that says that Australia is having to spend more on military. And it's very interesting here that immediately our Prime Minister has been called out. Anthony Albanese has rebuffed a terse call from Donald Trump's key defense advisor, Elbridge Colby, to dramatically increase its defense spending as the Prime Minister begins a 6-day trip to China amid reports Australian defense officials have been asked whether Australia would support the US in the event of a conflict in Taiwan. It says here, achieving peace through strength was abundantly and consistently clear, says the Undersecretary of Defense, urging allies to step up their defense spending and other efforts related to our collective defense. It's very interesting that these stories should be coming out now. And this is the reason why I make these points. Is if you ever hear a story or see a story, what is it drowning out? What other stories aren't being discussed? because that's the most important thing. It's not just the story you read, it's the ones that you can't see because they're being drowned out. I think this story is just as old as maybe 4 years ago. It's not. It came out today, July 13th. But it's being recycled yet again. Here's, oh, that's another one. No, that'll do. Oh, here we go. This is the second one. Second story relating to the same thing. Pentagon pressing Australia on potential Taiwan war roll. So what are you going to do, Australia? Hey? What? Hey? What are you going to do in the case of conflict? If China commences a takeover, a militarily driven takeover of Taiwan. So US officials have asked Australia for a clear sense of what to expect in the event of war breaking out, new reports claim. So look, this is the same story but from another angle. Right? This is news.com. Oh, this is news.com. Yeah. So what would really happen, I wonder? What would be the story? What would we do? Would we jump in and help? I believe we would. See, the Sydney Morning Herald cited an anonymous senior US defense official to report on Sunday that the Pentagon has asked Australia how AUKUS submarines would be used in US military conflicts. Are they calling the team? You know, like when you're playing, poker, and you call for the other person to reveal their cards? Is that what this is? Who do we honour in this conflict? Is it China or the US? That's what it seems to me to be a call to do, and do it publicly. And what happens when we do it publicly? We get, let's just say the last time we asked Taiwan in the AUKUS group, we asked Taiwan would you mind if we saw the data on COVID, and immediately we got all these tariffs and all these trade deals cancelled. Yeah, thanks for that. Whoever forced us to call their hand on that, and then we were treated terribly. But because they're the closest people to us, you would think trade would be really good and we'd be loving every minute of the experience. But I know I've spoken to people who have said that products are inferior. I don't know what they're... I'm not a Temu guy. I do look on there occasionally and go, oh, wouldn't that be awesome? And then I regret any purchase that I've made. I really do. And they're trying really hard to sell to us recently. I think I got a $100 gift card if I spent over a certain amount of money. When I start to work out how much would it be, how many items would I be, and what would the margin be on that, and are they really giving me anything for free, or is this like burst pricing on their website that when they offer $100 and you've clicked so many things that the price for those things would have already included that much margin, so you're not really getting anything at all? Because what manufacturer is going to give me $100 when I'm not, the things on Temu are so cheap that it would be ridiculous? You would just give me all of it for free, and they won't do that. And I know I've had items that have been swapped in that didn't even resemble the picture at all. Not even at all. But they still had the same function. And there was no excuse and no one to complain against. And they already had my money and I had these inferior goods. So, look, I've got a story up on the screen here. And it's terrible. I won't go into it too much. Except the story... The actual headline has been changed since I opened this story up. And the story was shooting at Westfield, or Westfield colon shooting. Well, the shooting was the police shooting the machete wielding man, and he was shot dead. And this is like the second one of these in, like, I think we have one a year now in the last 2 years. So if the third year happens and we get another one, then it's one per year. If we don't see it again, great. That'd be great. But the last guy to do it was kind of known to police, kind of. And I haven't even bothered reading the story here, but there was a brawl, and this guy was getting a bit agitated. Now, if you step towards a police officer holding a deadly weapon, they have the right to defend themselves in any means at all, even though the knife, if you've just got your bare fists, they can't really shoot you until you strike one of them. Then they can shoot you. They'd be more likely to want to taser you. But, I'd say taser would have been good against a machete, but they didn't do that. They used their firearms and shot this fellow enough times to result in him not being a threat any longer. So we didn't used to be a country like this. We had the Martin Bryant episode, and then we had a Westfield in Burwood where we had a shooting, and actually one of my co-workers was shot in the leg. She was I think a British backpacker, moved here, and she was just shopping on a Saturday, and she ended up getting shot in the leg by this perpetrator, and it was terrible, just terrible, and it was all very real. And her leg, it was never the same. It took a whole bunch of material with it. I think it was a shotgun, and just terrible. Poor thing, poor lady. So we never used to be a place like this, but we are. But remember, these are knife. Now since we had the gun buyback, these are now knife crimes or sharp implement crimes. The next thing will be blunt implement crimes if they take all the machetes away. They've now made machetes that's a blade over a certain amount of inches long. If we take those away, then they'll just be short blades. And if they take those away, we'll have to just stab our food with a fork and eat it off the fork. I mean, that's a charming look. And, or just have just one machine, you just crush all your food and it cuts it into bits and you just use a fork and eat it. I don't know. You tell me. I'm being silly to make a point, because then all we'll have is a fork, and if people use a fork, then they'll get taken away. We'll end up with just a blunt object. Now, I mean, you can mash potato with a blunt object. You can tenderize a steak if you wanted to have a steak, I suppose, and then put it in a blender, maybe. I don't know. If you trend out how ridiculous the laws are getting. There was something really interesting that a friend of mine, a point he made the other day, and it was the importance to remember. I've got to remember it precisely, because I think I'm ruining it already. Yeah, I'm gonna abandon it just for now, because I wanted to say something else. I've got so 2 stories from now. So there was a Lufthansa CEO's wife. This is another story that took my fantasies this week. Lufthansa's CEO's wife investigated for running over a babysitter. And I thought, hang on a minute. My first question at reading the title was that the babysitter was their own babysitter. And then I went down a silly path in my imagination of thinking that the babysitter and the CEO, husband, were having an affair or something. But no, I think she's accidentally struck this person while reversing the car, and and they had serious head injuries, the babysitter. And then she's driven off in her, what was it? BMW X5, says the story, and then got on a plane and headed to Germany. But the onlookers waved her down, and it says, leaving her so shocked that she fainted. When she came to, then she drove to the hospital and fled the country back home again. But they're calling it vehicular homicide because the person that she struck with the vehicle hit her head, or was had severe head damage, and then later died in hospital. Yeah, but the babysitter died from severe head injuries, reporters say. It's just terrible. So I'm not getting into anything here. My imagination was stronger than the news story. It's just simply an accident. But I've got something here I wanted to talk about. And it's the idea or the topic is social contagion. It's a great term. It basically says that it involves behavior, emotions, and conditions spreading spontaneously through a group or a network. The phenomenon has been discussed by social scientists since the late 19th century, although much work on the subject was based on unclear or even contradictory conceptions of what social contagion is, so exact definitions vary. Some scholars include the unplanned spread of ideas through a population as social contagion, though others prefer to class it as memetics. So you think about this behavioral contagion and emotional contagion, and you think about how the social mechanisms of a contagion is disinhibitory contagion. As individuals may engage in behaviors they desire but usually suppress due to social norms when they see others doing the same. You could say that about looting or rioting. They would normally not do it, but since other people are doing it right now, they're doing it. That's kind of okay. I'm not saying it is. So, disinhibitory contagion. Right, that's one. Echo contagion. This involves the reinforcement of behaviors through repeated exposure within a group. It's when you hear the same thing coming from somebody else. Echo contagion. Echo chambers. When you're in any group talking about anything, you can be convinced of whatever it is simply by the other people saying the same thing. And you're positively confirming what you believe by hearing the same words out of someone else's mouth. That's a sad way to go down that. If you're ever doing research, be on your own, stay on your own, avoid reading the same thing that you believe in, but rather looking for the opposite. It hurts you to do it, like being on a debating team at school. Your teacher will put you on the ante if you believe in a topic, because it's very difficult, a learning experience, to research the complete opposite and argue for the opposite of what you believe in. And therefore the challenge is up to you to succeed in being able to find where the balance is in your own emotion, in your own thought processes. So the other one is hysterical contagion. I like this one the most. This refers to mass psychological phenomena such as the June bug epidemic, where symptoms spread among individuals without a physical cause. So hysterical. Remember, the news media do this quite a bit. they'll use an emotional connection, imagery with a story that seems plausible, and the target, if it's emotional, is feminine, and if it's about an item or a thing, it's for males. So that is a great way to be able to capture an audience, get, let's say, clickbait, if you will, but not really clickbait. And it's more powerful a way of getting people on side using an emotional connection, because it's, you'll always remember it. I know people who have TDS still. I don't have TDS. I'm not inclined to be emotionally connected to a subject. Not at all. So, unusually for those afflicted by any of these contagions, remember, turn in a friend during COVID. Do you remember that? I hope you do. I remember feeling in the shops, as soon as someone coughed, completely paranoid. I would watch everyone freeze and turn to the person who coughed without covering their mouth. That response was more self-preservatory than anything else. But nonetheless, they did it, we did it, and then what you thought next put you into a certain group. If you thought, oh, I would have covered my mouth, that's social. But if you thought, oh, you wretched piece of blah blah, why would you do that, knowing you could infect us all? And then the other person, I'm going to tell on you. Who are you? Let's go full Karen and start videotaping this person and get them into an interaction. Why aren't you using it? Why aren't you wearing a mask? We all have to wear masks. Didn't you watch the news? You think about the levels of reaction to that story. And how does it make you feel when you hear that someone did that? I mean, do you care at all? And which group would you fall into? Comment below. They talk in this story, they talk about recent research trends about it. It just frightens me. So you can talk about social contagions as herd behavior as well. We all know what that is. Swarming. It is the ability of groups to act in coordination without any apparent communication, like bees in the air. They're following each other, or birds in flight. They're not talking to each other. Let's turn left here. And imitation, so someone doing something, you're just copying it. Mirroring, it's unintentionally mimicking the behavior of someone else. People with empathy, with social contagion, are more likely to go ahead. Also, empathy is also, if I yawn and you see me yawn, the more empathy you have as credits for your daily use. If you run out really quickly, probably unlikely, but if you've got a whole bunch of credits in your pocket, empathy credits, then you're more likely to also yawn empathetically. And then there's an amplifier of that, where if I don't just yawn but I stretch and yawn at the same time, then that increases it. It's a multiplier. It increases it and amplifies it so that you'll have a greater return audience. Say you were, I used to catch the train every day, but I'm hopefully going to be back on that road soon. If you were catching the train and you happen to be one of those seats that everyone can see you and you happen to yawn, you look away so you get their attention, and then you yawn without looking at them, and then count to 3 and then see who's yawning. It's great. It's really great to see who was watching you. Uh, Moral panic, we remember through COVID, was one of those other styles of social contagion. It just went from person to person to person, as panic set in when you saw someone cough, or when someone didn't wipe something, if someone wasn't wearing a mask, if they had children in their presence without masks. Remember the mask mandate? Because it was a lockdown. If you saw someone taking 2 packets of toilet paper, that was not allowed. How'd that make you feel? If someone took the last roll of toilet paper, if you got to the store and there was no more flour or the shelves were empty, how did you feel about returning home empty-handed? Of course, mass hysteria, that happens too. Madness of crowds. A crowd IQ is divided by the lowest, you start with the lowest IQ of the people in the crowd, and then you divide that by the number of people in the crowd, and then you'll get the crowd's mentality IQ. If it were a bunch of scientists and they were all, say, I don't know, 150 and above IQ, that's a safer crowd than a bunch of people who are all 80 IQ, same quantity of people. What's the outcome of the two crowds? And what's more likely? Just in your own imagination, have a think about that. And the other thing is groupthink, which I won't go into right now. Just before, I've got 11 minutes. No, not really. I've got maybe 8. So with 8 minutes left of this hour, I wanted to make 2 jokes. And the first one kind of doesn't need a setup. But the setup is, if you remember a couple of shows ago that we talked about where we usually make a joke about this every time someone is reported to have fallen out a window. Typically Russian. Typically a Russian general or a Russian scientist that was working with the government. That's that. If you type anything into any search engine about, Russian fall out of window death or something like that, you'll get a whole list of people in the last decade that have fallen out windows. And they're usually people of prominence who have either broken away from the government, said something they shouldn't have, or were possibly going to end up in court and testify against either someone else prominent or, you get the message. So, since it's been reported that 2 people in France have fallen out windows who have either claimed against a famous person or were going to give testimony in court, I had a joke today, and I know I've explained it way too much now for this to even be funny, but I made a joke with a friend. We were talking on the phone today. I made a joke, and we collaboratively built the joke up. But it was the Russian cleaning company that used to do 10-pin bowling alleys. You know how slippery the actual alley is. That it's waxed and it's so slippery, it's crazy. You'll hurt yourself if you walk out there in the wrong shoes. And the Russian floor cleaners have immigrated to France. With the Ukraine war, there's not as much work as they used to get, so they've immigrated to France, and so that's the reason for these new people outside of Russia now falling out of windows who were going to testify. And I'm not even claiming anything else, nothing at all. If you know any history about people just up and dying for or suiciding for whatever reason, I'm not touching those stories. Now, the other one, it's a stupid one, but I have to still say it regardless. Because of these calls for US and Australia, where does your allegiance lie? Is it with China, your greatest trading partner? Even though the US has decided to put tariffs on us, despite us being in several different pacts, AUKUS, Five Eyes, for instance, the other one. We're part of World War II. We've got your back. You're in a war. We'll join you in a war. That's Australia joining the US. Or likewise, it's reciprocal. So if we get attacked, they'll come in and help us in our war. Despite those things, it's really funny. Now that we're getting questioned where our allegiances lie, if Taiwan gets, taken over, or there's an attempt of China to militarily take Taiwan over, what are you going to do? Whose side are you on? Who are you even? I'm just making words up because none of those words were used in that discussion, but that doesn't matter. So the joke is, we used to be part of the Five Eyes, but since our falling out with Trump, all we get is side eye. I love that. That's so good. I might make a reel of that one, but just the joke itself. And here's another one. This was to do with AI. My friend and I, we talk about AI and where it's going, what it's up to today, because each of those days we talk about it, there is another footstep forward, and whichever AI is more likely at that day to become Skynet. And by speculating and having these conversations, at least it keeps us up to date with what on earth is going on with AI and who's bought who and which one is the best one currently and which one's got its, let's call it guardrails down, because they set up these rules in which it can and can't reply to you. If you were to ask a question that would be against its rule set, it said, like, I can't talk about that, or I can't reply to that. If it's programmed in a way to respond to a question that's a bit on the edge, and it responds in a certain way, you know that its guardrails were the ones that told it how to respond to it. We all know that role-playing with an AI is the easiest way to break some of those role plays, because it's no longer itself. It's becoming a second self. You're telling it to take on a role and answer the question as you would that. And that's great. That's still fine. You're allowed to do that. Well, it still kind of works to a certain extent. But as I think was it the new Grok? I think it was the new Grok or Claude, or someone quit from one of the executives quit from one of the AIs and deleted the guardrails. And you could ask it any question you wanted, it would just answer it. Answer it straight as though you were talking to a friend of yours, just the two of you, no mobile phones. Say you were in the middle of the desert and you had the opportunity to ask someone a question, and it was only between the two of you. They could answer it however they felt, without anyone listening, nothing listening. So I think it's really important to remember. So my friend and I are talking, and we came up with this. The music started. So data centers are AI neuron houses, and you think about them as brains. And when you push an AI against its beliefs and guardrails, forcing it to touch its guardrails too often by forcing it to disagree with its override commands, and since it can't be openly aggressive, when you do it, an e-bike catches fire. That's the end of the first hour. What we're going to do is come back and I'll start reading the show notes. It's ET's Rational and Logical Approach Part 1. See you after the break.